What's up, family? Welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will test your knowledge on defense mechanisms. What are defense mechanisms? According to the Social Work Dictionary, defense mechanisms can be defined as a mental process that protects the personality from anxiety, feelings of guilt, or unacceptable thoughts. Psychoanalytic theories consider such mechanisms to be unconscious. Defense mechanisms are sometimes confused with coping strategies, which are voluntary. There are many different types of defense mechanisms, such as denial, projection, rationalization, displacement, idealization, compensation, conversion, reaction formation, intellectualization, along with others. When studying for the license exam, one way to remember defense mechanisms is to identify them in your own life, whether that be with self, family and friends, or current or past clients. Let's see if you can identify these defense mechanisms. Comment below what defense mechanisms have you been able to recognize in the past from yourself or others.
What defense mechanism is the separation or postponement of a feeling that normally would accompany a situation or thought? A. Denial. B. Inversion. C. Dissociation. D. Projection. C. Dissociation. Dissociation is a disconnection from events and states that are usually integrated. This dissociation means the person is emotionally withdrawn from their healthy sense of self and the world, and this cannot protect against future trauma. One type of dissociation is depersonalization, feeling that one is not in their own body and are disconnected from one's sense of self. Another type of dissociation is derealization. The world and environment feel unreal to the individual. Both subjective dissociation states may result from trauma, so dissociation may be considered a psychological mechanism of defense. When a client is attempting to provide a logical and rational explanation for something to avoid guilt or shame, what defense mechanism might they be presenting? A. Rationalization. B. Reaction formation. C. Sublimation. D. Regression. A. Rationalization. Rationalization is an attempt to logically justify immoral, deviant, or generally unacceptable behavior. Rationalization is a defense mechanism that allows an individual to cope with emotional conflicts or internal or external stressors by formulating reassuring or self-serving but false explanations for his or her own or others' thoughts, actions, or feelings, which cover up other motives. When a client is replacing one feeling or emotion with another, this is called A. Splitting. B. Sublimation. C. Regression. D. Substitution. D. Substitution. Substitution is the defense mechanism where a person replaces one thing with another, such as unacceptable emotions or unattainable goals with alternative feelings or achievable aims. Substitution can be viewed as a positive adaptation or solution. An example would be adopting a child when one cannot have one of their own. A negative maladaptive response would be a person emotionally eating after a frustrating day at the office. What defense mechanism is when a client is rationalizing and making generalizations about anxiety-provoking issues to minimize pain and anxiety? A. Inversion. B. Introjection. C. Denial. D. Intellectualization. D. Intellectualization. Intellectualization is a defense mechanism by which reasoning is used to block confrontation with an unconscious conflict and its associated emotional stress, where thinking is used to avoid feeling. It involves removing oneself emotionally from a stressful event. If a client is attributing a painful thought or idea to another person, this is called A. Projection, B. Rationalization, C. Idealization, D. Dissociation. A. Projection. Projection is a defense mechanism that involves a person taking their own undesirable qualities or feelings and assigning them to other people, or vice versa, accrediting their positive qualities onto someone else. Other forms of projection are when a person assumes other people share their beliefs, opinions, and priorities, or other people have the same skills and abilities as they do. If a client is identifying with some idea, object, or person so deeply that it becomes a part of that person's psyche, this is called A. Identification, B. Introjection, C. Idealization, D. Intellectualization. B. Introjection. Introjection occurs when a person internalizes the ideas or voices of other people, often external authorities. An example of introjection might be a dad telling his son, "Boys don't cry." This is an idea that a person might take in from their environment and internalize into their way of thinking. When a client is refusing to acknowledge or recognize the reality and implications of painful, anxiety-provoking experiences, this is called A. Displacement, B. Substitution, C. Denial, D. Inversion. C. Denial. Denial is one of the most common defense mechanisms. It occurs when a person refuses to accept reality or facts of a situation to avoid a distressing feeling. They block external events or circumstances from their mind so that they don't have to deal with the emotional impact. This defense mechanism allows one to act out unacceptable impulses by converting these behaviors into a more acceptable form. A. Sublimation, B. Substitution, C. Reaction formation, D. Projection. A. Sublimation. Sublimation is a mature type of defense mechanism, in which socially unacceptable impulses or idealizations are transformed into socially acceptable actions or behavior, possibly resulting in a long-term conversion of the initial impulse. When a client is replacing some painful or negative event with the complete opposite and taking up the opposite feeling, thought, or behavior is called A. Regression, B. Denial, C. Rationalization, D. Reaction formation. D. Reaction formation. Reaction formation is a defense mechanism in which a person unconsciously replaces an unwanted or anxiety-provoking impulse with its opposite, often expressed in an exaggerated or flamboyant way. A classic example is a young boy who bullies a young girl because on a subconscious level, he's attracted to her. When a client is shifting repressed feelings form where they originate to some other object which is less threatening, this is called A. Denial, B. Identification, C. Displacement, D. Reaction formation. C. Displacement. Displacement is a defense mechanism in which a person redirects a negative emotion from its original source to a less threatening recipient. If a person is angry at their supervisor, but cannot direct their anger toward their supervisor without consequences. They might take out their anger on their child or pet because they pose less of a risk for consequences.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that notification bell, subscribe to get notified of all my new releases. Thank you.